Even though most of the designers that we talk to in interviews wouldn't recognize it directly when we ask them, I think that there is such a thing as Dutch design. And every time we would ask somebody in an interview what design was or what Dutch design is, they would always say, well, I'm a designer and I'm from the Netherlands, so it's just design. I don't have an answer for you. Or sometimes they would even say, there is no such thing as Dutch design, and it's this big argument. But after this field school, I feel like I can say that there is such a thing as Dutch design. And for me, Dutch design is humans. It's humans on a daily level about daily life. And over again, we heard about the importance of daily life as a driving force for design for these designers in the Netherlands. And I think that it takes becoming embedded into the culture for a significant period of time in order to properly assess what Dutch design is and get a better idea of how Dutch designers really work with humans on an everyday level. And the thing about Dutch design is that I find that it's more of a mindset or an approach to a project and less of a process. I sort of expected it to be a process going into the field school, but it's kind of the opposite. It's just this Dutch mindset that they go into a project, and it's a way of looking at a project rather than it just being this is the way they do things 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They just really want to. Well, a lot of the designers that we talk to just want to be able to affect people on a daily life, and that's what I think that Dutch design really stems from, is from everyday life, is human everyday life. In all the interviews that we did, I was really amazed with how much the interviewees just wanted to give everything away. It seemed like they had no secrets, and in every interview that we did, it always seemed that the person that we were interviewing could always refer to somebody else that we were interviewing's work and talk directly about it and speak directly about it, whether it was like EDHV, who has graphic designers, coders, model makers, to like say Claudia Youngstra, who works in like rural Friesland doing natural materials, and I mean somebody like Dick Van Hoff even, who works kind of off on his own, or Petra Blaise in Amsterdam, right in the middle of it. They all kind of had something to say about one another, and they're all in the Netherlands, and they're all kind of separate, but it's always all together. And so because they're always collaborating like this, it creates this kind of constant knowledge sharing culture. And I really appreciated that, because I think that in Canada, the design culture is it's a lot more business centered, and we have a lot of secrets here, but they're hidden away as competitive advantages. So this kind of competition-based design culture kind of lacks inspiration or real innovation, because we've got people holding on to secrets and stuff like that, rather than just sharing all their knowledge and kind of providing it for the greater good and inspiring others in the community. I think that the Netherlands has that going pretty well, and we could really work on that in Canada. So that was really what I took out of a lot of the interviews, was the amount of knowledge that they were just willing to share with everybody. One of the most inspiring moments of the field school for me was standing outside of Vincent de Rijk's studio, who was the model maker for OMA. And he was talking to a small group of us, and he mentioned, just go for it. Don't wait around to get everything, to wait for the perfect opportunity. Just go for it. There's no sense in waiting around. If you have a good idea, it deserves to be realized, no matter who you are. It could be a student or a young kid or a professional architect or a senior citizen. People have good ideas all the time that deserve to be realized. He also said that every 5 years or so, a group of students comes along that work really well together, and they just have this kind of uncanny connection between them. And that's something that should be followed up with and cherished, because it's not one of these things that comes around all the time. And in that case, just go for it. Just go with that group and just start a collective or start a studio or something like that. And that was really awesome for me to hear, because I feel like I'm part of one of these groups that he mentioned through some of the courses here in the SIA program. And it wasn't just Vincent either that was making these kinds of comments about just going for it. Bert-Jan Pott made a similar comment about just starting to make things in his studio when he began. Petra Blaise is the same way. She just experimented in her garden when she started to do her work, and really started to notice this was like why not culture in the Netherlands, and I believe that that's kind of played a large role in how many Dutch designers achieve success in their work. And I think that contrast with Canadian design culture and the fact that there's a lot higher sense of risk here in Canada. Here it seems that it's a lot more of a get your ducks in a row, do your post-secondary education all the way through, do your master's or whatever, then you're an intern at a studio or a company, and then you move forward from there. As opposed to just when you're a student, say you're in your third year and you have a great idea and you have a great group, just go for it, because these are the times that it's going to count. Like these are big ideas, and they deserve to be realized. So I really appreciated that about the Dutch culture, and I'm really glad that I got to see that contrast with Canadian culture that way. And I really appreciate, or I really prefer the just do it mentality over the wait until you're sure, get your ducks in a row mentality that we have in Canada. My interview with Petra Blaise was a truly memorable moment for me. When I was first assigned her to research, we didn't really have anything in common. She worked on gardens and interiors and lighting, and I'm a web designer, so it seemed like a pretty big contrast, and I wasn't really necessarily feeling it. But after the research, after I read her book, Inside Outside, which is also the name of her studio, I really became quite fascinated with the way that she approached design and approached projects. It was something that I hadn't seen, to use these like innovative materials to evoke like a specific emotion. It was just something I'd never been exposed to on such a deliberate level. And so after the interview, I really began to realize how the different disciplines of design are all really interrelated and interconnected. I mean, I already had an idea of, obviously, design is connected and related all throughout the design spectrum, but I never really had a real feeling of, okay, this is how it all kind of works together, because there's so much, if you're talking about interior design, graphic design, architecture, web design, so forth, like they all have this common ground and they all use the same language and concepts as one another. It takes a higher level of understanding, I think, to be able to recognize that. And that's something that I think that I understand on a much higher level now. So that was really nice also to be a part of. Joining this field school was the best academic decision I've made in my academic career. Coming into the field school, I had a pretty strong sense of my own personal values that I normally would embed into my work or into my design process. It's just now been way more augmented with what I've seen. Going into all the interviews, we kept hearing again and again the importance of affecting people in their daily lives, and that was really important for me and really awesome for me to see, because that's really how I work as a designer. And since a young age, since I started getting into design, I realized before I left for the field school that I liked affecting people on a daily basis. I liked being able to make something and people would be able to experience it or look at it and say, oh, like that's really cool, or it would change their mood in some way, hopefully for the better. But regardless, that was just really something that I cherished as a value, and to see this over and over again in these interviews that we were doing with people was really great, because it really gave me clarity on how I approach design and why why I call myself a designer. And then just the other thing is, going into the field school, I was just a web designer. Like I did some programming and I've done some 2D design. So I was a web designer, and it's what I like doing. But now I realize that there's just so much more out there that's achievable. And on my website, on my portfolio, it says I'm a web guy, and as soon as I can, I'm going to strip that off, because I don't want to just attach web designer to my name now. I want to be an interaction designer. whether it's experiences or objects or environments, and whether or not it has anything to do with web. That's great, but I really want to just be an interaction designer, and this field school really helped me to understand that about myself.